Lovely. Thank you, Sophie. Thank you, Brian. Brian has majored on the importance of local authority in all our thinking. And I'm going to do a little bit more sort of the practical ways in which we do that. This is born of my background as Director of Public Health in London and my frustration in the fact that we were doing a lot of interesting things, but I was finding it increasingly difficult, impossible to evaluate those actions. And local government around me was doing loads of things that impacted upon the wider determinants of health, but no way of evaluating it. And the gap between public health practice and local government and the research world of public health research was a gaping gap, unlike in the NHS where the things are very much joined at the hip. So I'm just going to share my slides. So the public health research programme has we have £17 million a year to spend, basically, and we would like to spend that. We aim to spend it on upstream research at a population level. It's not all at upstream and it's not all at population, but that's our preferred direction of travel. And of course, local authorities are really key to that. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our processes and how we try and engage local government through our processes, a bit about something called the FIRST scheme, our local authorities systems call, and excitingly our button. It may not seem exciting, but it was exciting, and the future, which Brian has sort of touched on. So why we want to engage in local government? Brian mentioned a piece of work that we did back in 2017, where we looked at the public health research portfolio of the NIHR between 2006 and 2018. And we distributed that by the domains, the 4 domains of the public health outcomes framework, which is the framework which public health practice uses. And if you look at this slide, it was very clear that the NIHR funded a lot of public health research in the healthcare system, which was unsurprising. The NHS is the reason the NIHR was born, and fair enough. We were doing a lot of public health research in the healthcare system. We weren't doing much in the health protection system, but that was because the data we were looking at didn't include the health protection research units, which are specifically set up to do that. The NIHR was doing public health research in health improvement. And by health improvement, we mean the individual level stuff. So research into smoking cessation clinics or weight management clinics. But what we were absolutely not doing was this work in improving the wider determinants of health. And there's just this massive gap. And that is what it felt like as a director of public health out there, that the evidence base wasn't there to help me to persuade people and to engage with my wider determinants colleagues in planning and transport and parks and whatever. So we got exercise about this, and thankfully engaged the Department of Health in this, and Chris Whitty was particularly interested in this gap, and it fits very much with his thinking, which was great. So what do we do at the moment? We have processes for developing research calls. We spend about half of that £17 million on calls for specific research on specific areas of interest. And we try and pick areas of interest that are of use to public health practice, that are often developing areas where there isn't much natural research happening, to try and stimulate the academic community to think about these areas. And as part of our process of identifying those topic areas and of developing the calls for research, we engage with expertise both in local government, in Public Health England, Public Health Wales, in the third sector. So local government is asked for their opinions in those calls, so that we know we're calling for research that will be useful to local government. We then have committees. We have 2 committees in our processes, our prioritisation committee and our funding committee, and every application has to go through both committees. The prioritisation committee is where we have public health practitioners, and so we have directors of public health, consultants in public health, we have chief execs, local authorities, people from the third sector. And that prioritisation committee is asked the question, if you got the answer to this research, would it be useful to you in public health practice, in your day-to-day job? Do you think it would influence policy? Would it be useful in influencing decision makers? And so that committee is very much asking local government, would this research be useful for you? And as I say, every application goes through that, be it applications that we have called for, or if that's researcher-led applications that come through. So when you're writing an application, think that it's got to go through that hoop first. If it gets through that hoop, and only if it gets through that hoop, it then goes on to the funding committee, which is where the academics pull it apart and check that actually the methodology and all the other issues are correct, and the activity that's being proposed will answer the research question. And then when those applications are being looked at by the funding committee, one of the questions we ask is, has local government been involved in the development of the research that's being proposed, and are they going to be an active partner in the research as it's underway? And we actively encourage research teams to include somebody from a local authority. We want that person to be paid. We're very happy to pay their time for the research. We don't want local authority people to be sort of tagged onto research teams and to be said they'll be doing it in their own spare time, because from my experience, you have no spare time. So we would rather their time be paid. And that is also an important message to go back to local government about the expertise in the public health people that they have. And maybe other people with planning or whatever, that the many people in local government who have a research skill, some research training and background are of value, and that is important. That's an important message to get to local government, that research is a valuable thing. So then what we've done is a couple of other issues. We recognise that local government is inventing interventions all the time. Every action that a local government takes, it may not think of it as a research intervention, but it is an intervention that is likely to impact upon health and upon health inequalities, positively or negatively, be that stuff that is specifically driven by the public health team, or if that's stuff driven by planning or the transport system, or all the other issues, all the other things that that local government does. But what we weren't able to do is match the really interesting interventions to the researchers, and to get a speedy, a fast enough response so that we could fund evaluations of these ideas that are often you put up very quickly. Local government works at a very fast rate, and they may develop a new program or a new piece of work very quickly. That piece of work may be funded only for a year, and then it's gone. And the public health research program can often take 2 years to decide to actually fund something. So that's pretty useless if we wanted to capture the learning that could be done from all these natural experiments that are ongoing all the time across the country. So our response to that has been the development of the FIRST program. And this is a mechanism whereby we, the Public Health Research Programme, fund and contract with 4 academic teams. They're fully funded for 3 years, and they are sitting there ready to evaluate things that local government are doing. And then what we are doing is putting out a call to local government, and there's one live at the moment, to ask local government to propose things that they're doing that could be evaluated. We launched this, it was due to launch, I think, about a week after the first lockdown last year, which was not the best time to launch something. But remarkably, we got enough things coming in from local government to get our 4 academic teams busy, and they're already working on 3 different evaluations each. And then this current call will end in June, and that will give them a fourth evaluation each. And we see this as an ongoing call to local authorities. There will always be somewhere they can propose initiatives through our website, and we will have an ongoing supply of these the local authority initiatives, which will go to the academic teams. And then the academic teams have to co-create an evaluation with local government. So the academic teams have to work closely with local government to make sure that they're evaluating the elements of that work that local government's interested in. The customer is very much local government in these models. To give you an idea of the things that we are evaluating, currently there's a free universal breakfast club and secondary school meals project going on in Hammersmith and Fulham that we're evaluating, obviously very topical after all the Marcus Rashford stuff this summer, but we started before that. We are looking at the restriction of unhealthy food advertising in public transport in Yorkshire. We are in Leeds looking at how they have changed the delivery of their drugs and alcohol services because of COVID to a remote model, which seems to be working well. So we want to find out really, is it working well, and is that a potential model for the future? And then up in Fife, we're evaluating a scheme whereby people with mental health issues are given extra support in job centres to enable them to get into employment, and to see whether that is worth the extra resource. There is a blog on the public health, on the NIHR website, which I wrote, which gives a little bit more information around that. Then I mentioned the local authority research systems call. This is something we did over last summer. We recognised that we wanted to have a better understanding of what local authorities thought of research and having a local research system in their area, what assets they might have. And so we put out a call to offer £50,000 to enable somebody to go around and do that thinking, go and talk to people across the summer. And we had a lot of interest, and the Department of Health gave us a little bit more money. So we ended up funding 40 local authorities right across the UK. And we asked them to go and identify the research assets that already were present within their local system, and to explore the relationship between their local authority and the higher education system, be that the local university or other universities that they had relationships with, and to also think about what might be needed to make a proper local authority research system function in an area. And then we asked them to put that into 20 slides of PowerPoint and no more, absolutely no more, which went straight to the Department of Health to help them with their thinking, which was fed then into the comprehensive spending review that happened in the autumn last year. And what we did was we got a very consistent message from those 14 local authorities that there was an interest in this idea of having a local research system, that there was a smattering of expertise, and in some places more than a smattering of expertise, in a wide range of people, both in local government and in the local HEIs who had an interest in local government, but that there was more time needed. There was people in local authority might well be interested in research, but they just didn't have the time to do it. And how do we get around that? How do we give them the wherewithal to be able to access research results, to get into various different parts of the research world? And so it was interesting to get a relatively consistent message from those local authorities, and an encouraging message to give straight into the heart of the Department of Health that local authority was up for this, but they did need the resources. They hadn't got the resources themselves. Right, the button. Sad how excited I got about this. We are aware as part of the NIHR that we are part of a very large organisation that is not really known within local government. It's very much an NHS-facing organisation. And when you go onto our large website, there was nowhere really for local authority people to land. We haven't solved that problem completely yet, but at least now on the Public Health Research program's website, on our web page, if you scroll down the web page, you will get to a series of buttons, and we now have one which has a local authority research written on it, which is very exciting, because what that does, if you click on it, it takes you through to a lot of detail about the first program, a lot of detail about those local authority research systems calls I've just told you about, and is a space for us to put more information about things as we develop them. And Brian has mentioned the health determinant research collaborations, these sorts of things. We need to have somewhere we can put them. At the moment, it's only a button, and boy, we've had to sweat blood to get our button, but we're hoping that we'll have a little bit more than that, and somewhere that local government can come to the NIHR website, which speaks their language rather than the sort of NHS language, and where they can find the information they need. So just to be aware that that's there if you want more information on the things we've been talking about. And then heading for our future. So the good news is that the Department of Health is very excited about all this work we're doing. They've been really, really supportive of us over the last year and a half or more. And that support has taken the form of proper money, which is always makes things an awful lot easier and is rather amazing considering the economic situation we find ourselves in. So we are benefiting hugely from the support of Chris Whitty really and his team, which is great. So that's going to enable us to expand the first teams, and we currently have 4 teams who are contracted for 3 years. That's expanding to 5 teams who are going to be contracted for 5 years, and then the plan is that will be an ongoing rolling program. So that's something set for the future, and the call for the 5th team is currently on our calls page. And there will be, as I said, this ongoing call to local authorities for initiatives, so that the directors of public health always have somewhere to go to try and get some resources, some real high quality engagement and evaluation resources. And then Brian's already talked about these health determinant research collaborations, and this is very exciting, and it really could be a game changer. I was very struck. I know Portsmouth very well because it's where I was a GP and where I trained, and where I was a consultant in public health, and I was very struck how that the hospital, that a fairly bog standard District General Hospital has a large R&D unit, where the City Council, where I used to work, has nothing, and that difference is huge. And hopefully things like the health determinant research collaborations will begin to change that, and that there will be an R&D unit of some sort in those councils, those local authorities who are interested, starting off as we're doing with your handful this summer. But I'm old enough to know that when I came out of medical school 25 to 30 years ago, there were only a handful of NHS trusts who did research, and they were seen as slightly weird. Now, of course, it's completely routine, and I'm very hopeful that in 25 years' time, that the health determinant research collaborations will be seen as fairly routine in those local authorities who want to be engaged in this. And we're getting all the right noises. There are plenty of local authorities who will be engaged. So watch this space for that. We hope it'll be very exciting.